All right. Hey, traders. This is Omar with MotiveWave. Let's get started. So the topic of today's webinar is how to use volume profiles, a clear approach with myself and Dr. Daniel Sinnig. Please take a moment to go over our disclaimer before we begin. All right. Before we dive into today's session, I'd like to introduce a special guest who brings a wealth of knowledge to the trading community. We're honored to have Dr. Daniel Sinnig from Trading Indicators joining us today. Daniel has a PhD in software engineering and is an expert in utilizing our publicly available software development kit. MotiveWave's software development kit allows traders and developers to create custom studies, indicators, strategies, trading algorithms within the MotiveWave platform. Now, with 15 years of experience developing cutting-edge trading tools, Daniel's team has helped traders worldwide refine and code up indicators and gain deeper insights into market dynamics. Today, he'll be sharing his expertise on volume profiles, helping us break down one of the most powerful yet often misunderstood tools in trading. I hope everyone's ready today for an in-depth session that will transform the way you interpret market liquidity and structure. Daniel, we're excited to have you here. Welcome.
Hey guys, hello everyone, and also from my side, welcome to this webinar. For once, I'm super excited to be here. It's always good to be back with the good folks from MotiveWave. We've been in the business for a long time, and MotiveWave has been the first platform we developed indicators and strategies for. So it's great to be back. It's always nice. We have a very good relationship with MotiveWave, and I'm super happy to show you guys what our latest innovation for MotiveWave is. And as you can probably guess from the title, it is centered around the concept of volume profiles. And I tell you one thing, even before getting too far into it, this is a tool which has changed our trading around. It is on every single chart that we're using in our trading. It's always there. Some other indicators, they are optional, but this one is always there because it gives us insights which we had not seen before, helping us trade or make better trading decisions. So super excited to share it with you guys, and let's get into it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. There we go. Okay, so you guys should be able to see my screen now. And today's topic is how to use volume profiles, a clear approach. And you know what? When we thought about the title, of course, we wanted to use volume profile, but I also wanted to point out that, hey, trading with volume profiles, it may look fancy and, have all these nice graphs on the chart, but it is often not so straightforward to actually extract something
Sorry to interrupt,
insightful
Daniel.
from it. Yes.
I don't believe your screen is sharing just yet.
Oh,
I can see it, Daniel, but it might not be visible for Omar. Omar, if you're still sharing your screen.
Oh, yeah, maybe you have to stop sharing, Omar.
Oh, I did.
If it's not visible for anyone in the chat, please put a message in the Q&A box. But I can see it, Daniel.
Yeah, and I get some messages here that they can see it too. So I think we're good,
Okay.
Omar. Yeah, all
Sounds
good. Okay, perfect. All right. So, yes. So what I was about to say is that, hey, volume profiles, they are a popular tool. They are built into most trading platforms. But using them and extracting insightful information, useful information from it, is not as straightforward as you may think. And why that is, and what you need to do to get this information out of volume profiles, we're going to discover together today. All right, guys, so please be comfortable seated and let's get into it. And of course, before we do, let me quickly also reintroduce myself. So my name is Daniel Sinnig, as you can see here on the left-hand side. And about 10 years ago, we have created a business, a company called tradingindicators.com, together with Homa here in the middle. We are nearing our 10 years anniversary. And over the years, we have built literally thousands of indicators and fully automated strategies for clients all over the world. It's been a wild ride. We have clients, of course, in Canada, where we're based, in the US, in Europe, Australia, Asia, really all over the world. It's been fascinating. And Niklas, in fact, he joined us 5 years ago, give or take. He has been instrumental as our lead developer. Behind many of our latest innovations. And in fact, Niklas is going to take over the demo part today when it comes to our volume IQ indicator. Now, most of what we do is based on what's called technical analysis, which is basically a pattern analysis of your price chart. We believe that fundamentals are almost immediately priced in. And by performing a technical analysis of your price chart, you will indirectly also take into account that fundamental information. We also believe that trading should be simple. And in fact, trading can be simple, but you need to know what to look for. And perhaps most importantly, you need to use the right trading platform and the right indicators. And what we use now at trading, and as I mentioned before, this is what I'm going to show you, is on every single chart that we're using. I'm going to share with you today. And of course, guys, if you have any questions, this webinar is for you. Please don't hold back. Put these questions into the Q&A box or the chat window, and we're going to go through them towards the end of this webinar. All right, so let's get started. Before we do, a quick reminder also from our side that trading does contain substantial risk and therefore is not suited for every investor. If you trade, make sure to only use risk capital, which is money that you actually can afford to lose. When it comes to hypothetical performance or backtest performance, keep in mind that this is not necessarily indicative of future performance, and any trade ideas and strategies discussed in this webinar should not be construed as trade advice. These are for educational purposes only. All right, so with this out of the way, let's start with the topic at hand. Volume profiles. These are indicators which you apply to your price chart. So they're basically indicators just like any other indicators, but at least to us, they have been a game-changing tool. Why? Because they allow us to see information and insights onto the market which other indicators cannot do. So they provide us with powerful insights into price behavior for both day traders, short-term traders, but also longer-term traders or swing traders. So they work on all these different time frames. Now, for those of you who may not know what volume profiles are, let me give you an example. So we've heard about volume, regular volume, and volume typically is available on every single bar or every single chart. You can see it here underneath the price chart. This is just regular candle volume. This is not yet a volume profile. And with regular candle volume, so you can see here, it indicates how much volume was traded at a particular candle. Just by going down here, you can see how much volume was traded. There can also be a number behind this bar. You can see if there was more volume traded or fewer volume traded at a particular moment in time. So that's regular volume. But a volume profile does it a bit differently. A volume profile, you can see it here, is first of all not printed underneath the price chart. It's printed on the side, typically on the right-hand side. And what a volume profile does, it shows you how much volume was traded at a particular price area or price zone. You can see it here. For example, in this zone here, perhaps between 245 and 250, give or take, this much volume was traded. In this area up here, at the 280 area, much less volume was traded. You can see it here. The 320 area, this much volume is traded. So a volume profile, or with a volume profile, each bar is a measure of the volume traded at that price level. So this is very different from regular volume, where you measure volume per candle. With volume profiles, it's volume traded at a certain price level. So please keep this in mind. We're going to build on top of this concept. All right, so what can you extract from this information? Well, let's ease into it. At first, you can see, okay, at which price levels, for example, there's a lot of trading activity or a lot of volume traded. For example, here in this block, between, let's say, 270, give or take, and maybe 170, a lot of volume was traded. It's very popular. Price, was very much contested in this area. And up here, in this area, perhaps between 350 and 280, give or take, much fewer volume was traded. You can see it here. The bars are so much smaller. So that's the first thing you can take away from a volume profile. And if you want to sum this up, you can even identify what we call high volume nodes, smaller areas where there's a lot of trading intention, a lot of volume, or low volume nodes where these bars are smaller. Keep this in mind because this concept will become important. Okay, so you can find these areas. And of course, the question now is, once I know what these areas are, where there's a lot of trading volume or a little trading volume, what can I extract from this in terms of insights for the future? Well, one insight is, and we're going to get to this topic in a second, is in areas with a lot of volume at these high volume nodes, a price seems to slow down. It seems to hang out in these areas. It seems to not move too much once it's in such an area because it's very much contested. Whereas in areas where there's little volume, like these ones here, we're going to have lots of examples of this, price tends to pace through it, accelerate through it, and move through these areas very quickly. So you can kind of predict to some degree how much volatility and how much price move is to be expected. Keep this in mind. All right. Now, so we can find these high volume nodes and low volume nodes, but there's more to volume profiles. We can also see, hey, was there perhaps a bias or an imbalance between buyers and sellers? And in a typical volume profile, you can see this with these different colors within a bar. Look at this one here. You can see that the greenish area is a bit bigger than the reddish area, meaning there's an imbalance. There are more buyers at this price level than there were sellers. So this gives you a read on what is the market sentiment once price enters this area. And the sentiment can be either bullish or bearish. Once again, you can use this information to make predictions of what may, of course, there's no guarantees, may happen once price enters these areas. So putting all this together, and we're going to build on top of this, how do traders typically use volume profiles? Well, many traders use these big volume nodes, these high volume nodes, these ones here. They use it as support and resistance. Because as mentioned before, as price enters into these levels, it tends to slow down. Sometimes even the price move will stop completely and price may bounce off these levels. Because these levels are very much contested. So that's one way to look at these things, to think about these as support and resistance. Two concepts which are very central when it comes to trading and technical analysis. And of course, once you know where support and resistance is, you can build your trades along this. For example, you can plan your entry. Let's say price approaches such a high contested area with a lot of volume. You may think, hey, it's going to bounce off that level to the opposite side. So you can time your entries, but you can also find your exits. Where would an exit be? Well, perhaps below where there's another area of high volume, possibly. All right, so how can we now put this into practice? Let me actually give you an example to make this a bit more practical. All right, so here we have an example of a volume profile applied to a MotiveWave chart. And we're here on the MNQ contract. This is the micro NASDAQ contract on the 15-minute time frame. And just by looking at this volume profile, I think it's very easy to see where there are high volume nodes, like this one here, for example. You can see how it peaks out, and where there are low volume nodes, this one here, for example. So how can we use this information now to form a story of what may happen in the future with this chart? All right, so let's break this down. First off, we can see this here is a high volume nodes, an area where traders are interested in buying and selling. It's contested. There's a lot of trading volume going on there. This area here on the other side is an area with low volume. Traders are not really interested in participating in the market at these levels. The volume is very low. And then back here, it picks up again. So you have these two higher volume nodes and here an area with very little volume. Okay, so we get this. So how can we now think about this in terms of trading? What may happen in the future? Well, how you can think of it is, for example, if price approaches this area here and breaks it. So you can think of it as a support area. Price approaches this, but manages to break it. Once support is broken, oftentimes we see an acceleration to the downside, especially if this is also an area with low volume. You can see it here. So If broken, of course, we have to see what happens. If broken, we may see an acceleration to the downside. Up until which point? Well, let's look at this high volume node here. This is once again a high volume node where price action may slow down. So as a trader, this could be an interesting target for your profit, for your profit target, because price may slow down here, perhaps an interesting idea to get out. And this is exactly how, in this case, it unfolded. Price managed to break through this level, this high volume node here. Support to some degree was broken. Then we entered into this area of low volume. You can see here price accelerated in this area. Nobody was really willing to participate in price action there. And then it only slowed down once we entered into this area of high volume once again. So this is something that could be extracted just by looking at this volume profile on the right-hand side. And there's so many more things that can be done. This is just the tip of the iceberg. All right. So as mentioned, there's so much more. And let me just give you some hints of what else you can extract from a volume profile. So far we've covered the basic concept. Let's get a bit more nuanced, a bit more, and to some degree sophisticated. So what else could be done? Well, first off, what a volume profile really allows you to do is to read the book of the market. This may sound esoteric, but it will give you a lot of context. What do I mean by this? Well, you can see where there is, for example, a bias towards buyers or sellers. If you have these imbalances between buy volume and sell volume. Important information to see, hey, in which direction price may have a bias to. Of course, you can see these important levels of high volume nodes and low volume nodes, which can act as accelerators, these low volume nodes, or decelerators if it's a high volume node. Of course, you can find interesting trade setups by looking at, hey, where's price in relation to all these levels? What is my bias telling me? You can find trade setups in terms of entries and exits. And most importantly, you can come up and read a story about the market, basically reading the market book, which, and this is what trading is all about, may help you to predict the next chapter, to predict what price may do next. And this is really the power of volume profiles, because it gives you a comprehensive picture of what is going on in the market. What is the story of the market? And of course, of every good story, you may have some imagination, some idea of what may happen next. And this is what a volume profile allows you to do. Now, these are more advanced concepts, which are not typically built into, standard volume profiles. But since to us, these were so important and so insightful, we decided to create an indicator which supports all these additional insights. And this indicator is called Volume IQ. How this indicator works and how it looks like on MotiveWave, we're going to show you next. So onto the chart, onto the live charts. So Niklas, are you there? Could you please bring up MotiveWave and show our audience how this indicator looks on the chart and what it does?
Sure thing, and we'll take it step by step.
Perfect.
So let me share my screen here. Okay, so let me know once you can see my MotiveWave.
I can see it, yeah.
All right, perfect. So what we're starting with here, before we show all the features, is really just a base volume profile. The only difference here between this and a standard volume profile is we've got our built-in, what we call gradient coloring, which makes the areas that have low volume, those low volume nodes and regions, they're less opaque, they're more transparent. And the ones that have high volume, like right down here, are, they're dense, they're very visible, and they're bright. So there's a little bit of a change here between a basic volume profile and this one. So Daniel spoke about, the different analogies or things we can read from a volume profile. And the first one had to do with, well, where is there an imbalance between buyer and seller volume? Which levels tend to show, a likelihood that traders are going to buy, and which ones show a likelihood that traders sell, at least historically? Well, first of all, in the settings of the indicator, so this is actually the base of Volume IQ before we start showing all of the features that allow you to kind of read a profile like a book. One thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to come into the settings, and I'm just going to make it, what I like to do is make it a little bit more granular. So on a volume profile, it divides up volume over time into how much volume was traded at each price level. But of course, we can change the number of levels, kind of the granularity of it. So I'm going to do that at first. So we have a little bit more of a fine-tooth comb reading what volume is doing. Now, first off, this is actually the chart Daniel showed. So Daniel showed that MNQ 15-minute chart, and I'm actually using replay mode in MotiveWave to go back to that exact moment in time. And this is relevant because this was just yesterday morning at 9:30 on March 26th. This is how MNQ looked. So the first thing a trader might want to know that's not in an average volume profile is, well, what is the imbalance at every single level? We've got a nice handy option right here. So let's get the story on that. Level bias labels. Now, if I click this, the indicator is immediately going to show me what is the volume imbalance at each level with these little square labels on the right. So I can see levels here that have gray imbalance blocks right here telling me that, hey, it's kind of neutral. It's kind of even within a 5% threshold between buyers and sellers. Then we can also note the areas where traders they tend to be buying. There's more buying volume. It's blue. And similarly down here, hey, it's red. There's more sellers that tend to pop up here historically in this price range around 250. 20,250. Now, the next thing, this is nice to see, but visually for human beings, if we're not using an automated bot, we want to get all this information quickly. So one thing we can do is enable what we call bias blocks. And all this is going to do is group together these zones. So now we can clearly see, well, where are the zones that tend to have buyers and where are the zones that tend to have sellers? Because in trading, everything's not usually precise. Price usually fluctuates between general zones of liquidity. So now we've taken care of this. This is basically the buyer and seller bias features and the important imbalance zones. The next one, though, ties into high volume nodes and low volume nodes. So like Daniel mentioned, on a chart like this, we might immediately see, hey, this is a lot of trading volume. In fact, this right here is probably a really high volume node. It's an important contested level on the chart. And down here, this isn't that important. There's not a lot of traders are willing to participate until we, start to get down into this region where there's lots of volume. Well, we have something to point out these important levels. And we call them action zones in our indicator here, volume IQ. And when we enable this, I want you to remember the concept Daniel mentioned. And it makes sense, right? So volume profiles are a measure of where volume flowed into the market over time. So this is, over time, this is how much volume happened at these price levels. So areas where there's lots of volume, like these high volume nodes, they tend to be areas where price spends a lot of time, where, once the market gets there, it tends to trade around in that region for a while. Whereas areas where there's not a lot of volume, the low volume nodes, the market doesn't spend a lot of time there, right? How could the market have spent a lot of time there if not a lot of trading happened? That's why there's low volume. So what we noticed in our testing is that high volume nodes tend to act as decelerators. So when price reaches a high volume node, it tends to slow down. The level might act, or the zone might act as support in this case, or resistance. I saw a comment in the questions about shelves and ledges. So this right here would kind of be a ledge, right? You fall down to here, there's a lot of volume, price is probably going to start to slow down, there's a lot of liquidity, but if it breaks, you're falling off the ledge until you get to another ledge. And if one of these was above price, it would act like a shelf, it would act like resistance. So high volume nodes tend to be decelerators, and low volume nodes tend to accelerate price. So if I enable action zones right here, this indicator is immediately going to point out all of the low and high volume nodes that you can expect to either decelerate or accelerate price. So this for us was kind of a huge revelation because we were trading already off of this concept, but it's not very easy to visualize, as a human being just with your eyes. So right here on this chart, we've now got what are the buyer and seller areas? Where do people like to buy and sell? We also know which zones are really important. These two rectangles here, these thicker zones, these are the high volume nodes, and these ones with one rectangle are the low volume nodes. So we know which areas are important. The high volume nodes, right here, right here, right here, and right here. These less important nodes, the low volume nodes rather, are areas where traders don't really find value or participate. So once we approach them, we might expect price will accelerate through them because historically traders don't like to trade there and the price doesn't hang around there very often. So looking at this chart right here, if you remember what Daniel said before. He saw, hey, there's a candle dropping here. What we might expect is, and I've got even more information than Daniel had on his chart here, so I'm just going to take it from what we see here. What do I see? Well, I see we just dropped down. This was at 9:30, so you would have seen this with the indicator on the 15-minute chart on NQ. We're now testing a high volume node, which is below price, and it's blue because it's telling us, and you can change the color theme. We've got a bunch of them to whatever maybe you like, the classic green and red, so on and so forth, but I'm going to stick with our default. So blue is basically bullish, red is bearish. What we could see here is we just dropped into a high volume node. So this is an important area. There's a lot of buyers here. But if that zone gets broken and lost, look what's below us. There's a low volume node, and it's what we call a tier 1 sell zone, which basically means if we get into there, price is probably going to accelerate through it because there's not a lot of liquidity at that level. And then if we accelerate through this zone, what's the next, big marker on the chart? It's the next important zone, what we call a zone of control, right here, this high volume node. This is now that ledge. So if price drops down to here, what do we really think is going to happen if this level gets broken? Well, we've got a lot of buyers here, right? A lot of people are buying. That's what caused all the volume here. But if we lose that level, look at all of these zones here. They're all low volume. And are there a lot of buyers stepping in here historically? No. There are sellers. And this big block right here, this whole area is neutral. It's not really clear if it's a buy zone or a sell zone. So we might make the assumption that, hey, if this level gets broken, we're probably going to drop down to here. We're going to accelerate through that low volume node, based on historical data. And if this one gets broken, we are going to accelerate through all of these areas, at least based on historical data. There's not a lot of traders stepping in. And where are we likely to find support? Well, the next area below us, where maybe there's a lot of volume, which was down here, just like in Daniel's example. And we just turn on another little feature just to show it. We can also have the volume count here. So this setup was super clear that if this happens, then we might come down to this zone. Then if this gets lost, we're going to drop down probably to here. So we're reading the story up to now of the market, and then we're predicting the next chapter based on what we see. And we can see on MNQ, this level got tested. Once it broke, we quickly dropped down through that tier 1 zone, or sorry, that low volume node zone, and price came down to the next important area, which is probably going to act as support to some extent. So we drop down to it, price kind of, jumps around a little bit while it's testing it, and these zones are changing in size because they're based on current volatility. And then once that one gets broken, we quickly accelerated very fast through the morning into the afternoon, way down. And where did we finally start to slow down? Where did we start to find some buyers? Right at that tier 2 zone that high volume node zone, that zone of control that we expected price might revisit. And now we can see here, hey, there's buyers starting to step in around the 20,050 mark. And going forward on NQ, what ended up happening is price dropped a little lower, but we ended up kind of relaxing and slowing down around that tier 2 or high volume node zone of control because it acts like an accelerator. So I think right here, Daniel, this was a good example of how we can see immediately, just like your setup, what's happening in the market without actually having to really think about it and analyze it manually. It points this out, and we're going to see some other examples.
And just to chime in on this, thanks, Nicholas, for the demo, is what you've seen right here, in fact, is our favorite setup. We trade it all the time. We call it the shift in power or shift in control setup. So if you go back to the slides, Nicholas, I think we can talk about the setup a little bit more because it's very powerful, at least in our experience. And we've mastered this setup, especially with our volume IQ indicator. So if you go.
Yeah, sure. So this setup is called shift in control. And do you want me to I'll take it away and talk about this actually, Daniel. So the setup we just saw, well, we noticed that there was high volume nodes that price was approaching. And once a high volume node is crossed, basically what's happening in the market is there's a shift in control. So let's look at this chart here on the left. This is an hourly chart of gold. And this was from March 12th, about 2 weeks ago. And right here on the chart, we can see visually, and the indicator makes it really clear, price is right at the zone of control or a zone of control. There can be multiple zones of control on a chart. It's an important area. If we are below this area, if you think about it logically, what does that mean if we're below a zone of control? Well, it means most traders, most traders, I think, a lot of people like to trade long, at least retail traders. If we're below the area where most traders are finding interest in the market, that's bearish, right? Because a lot of traders clearly open positions here, and now we're lower if we were below there. So that would be bearish. But if we cross above the zone of control, well, when price crosses the zone of control, the control of the market shifts in favor of either bulls or bears. So if we cross above the zone of control, well, now the longs, the people who are bullish and buying, they're in profit. So they're in control. They're not scared. They're not hitting their stop losses. They're likely to buy more and drive price up higher. If we drop below a zone of control, bears are in control. So that's why we call it the shift in control. The nice thing about this kind of setup and the idea with it is if you cross above a zone of control, you take a long trade, you enter long because now the market's shifting in favor of bulls in this case. The nice thing about this is a super easy trade management. That's why we always trade this setup. If we cross above this level, bulls are in control, we take a long. If the cross fails, so if we try to cross this zone right here, then we drop back under. Well, this is no longer going to act like a floor. Like when we cross above it, now that's the floor for us. If we cross below it, well, now it's a ceiling, it's resistance. We're just going to exit the trade. There's not a lot of risk, relative to other trade methods. Once we get above this level, we could just set our stop loss right below there. So on this chart on gold on the 1 hour, the idea here would have been, hey, we just crossed above the zone of control. Let's take an entry right when we cross the center of it. We set our stop loss below the zone. So we can use something like a local pivot, like this pivot right here. That was a nice coincidence. Or just below the area here that the indicator is showing for the zone. Because if we don't successfully rise up, then it's going to be a signal that the shift in control didn't happen. Let's get out. And the other thing we look for is that there's a low volume node, that kind of zone that accelerates price above or in the direction of the move. So here we would enter on the cross, put our stop just below it, low risk, and we have a nice thing going in our favor, which is above us, there's not a lot of trading. There's not a lot of volume. It's a low volume node, likely that price is going to accelerate through that area and put us in profit quickly. So this is a really nice setup, and we're going to see it happens all the time. And it has a really, really easy trade management, which is why we like it so much. So on that setup there on gold, a nice example. Once we crossed it, price really quickly came up to that zone, accelerated quickly through it, this low volume cutout right here. There's not a lot of traders. It blasted through it, started to hang out where there was high volume before then moving up higher. So we really love this setup. And this setup, the shift in control, we're always taking this setup. So we're not just saying this setup works. We're always trading it, and we're trading it publicly, putting it in our Discord and on our live session. So here's an example, and actually this ties back into the example Daniel showed on MNQ on the 15-minute chart. The reason why we chose that example is we actually traded that one, and we mentioned it. We called it out 24 hours before the setup happened, purely thanks to the indicator. So we wrote, this is yesterday, as in literally yesterday on a Wednesday at 9:55 a.m. We pointed out in the Discord, hey, MNQ is now testing that important 20,350 high volume zone. And we saw this in MotiveWave, that this zone right here is hanging out around 20,350. And once the market opened around 9:55, price came down and tested it. And we also said, hey, we mentioned at the Lunch and Learn, which was our weekly webinar that happens every Tuesday, 24 hours before, we already predicted this might happen. If that level gets broken, we may see 20,180. Why? Because 20,180, we look back on our MotiveWave charts at that point in time, 20,180 was down here, basically, or where was it? It was around here, which at the point in time, around 9:55, looked like we might start to get into an area of high volume. So, maybe take your profits if you're short. So let me come back here to the slide. We said, hey, we might see price drop down to this area where we start to see buyers start to step in, which is around, 20,180. We were being conservative. And what happened was we broke that zone. from the previous chart right here at 950. It tested it, 20,350. It broke it, and we dropped down real quick, easily to the 20,000. I think it was like 100. And although this is, we don't have volume IQ on the chart on the right here, you can see we posted this in Discord, in our Discord. We took that trade. Here's our short entries, and then we started to take our profit once we got around 20,190, 20,150 actually. And our entries were right in the 20,300s. You can see here, once we closed half the position, the average entry price was 23.12. We entered there because price was showing signs that it was breaking that zone of control, which is that shift in control setup that has high reward to risk, because you can just place your stop loss right above the zone that was broken and get out quickly if it didn't work out. And again, just to show it, we're always posting these trades in our Discord, and they're always happening, which is why it's so nice to have this information on a volume profile. So here's just some screenshots from our Discord. Most of our trades we're putting right, like look here, right when a zone gets crossed, a zone of control gets broken, hey, go short. It's a nice high probability setup. And tying in all the other information we have that lets you kind of read the volume profile in the market like a book is, like we spoke about, the buy and seller bias blocks. So guess what? The probability that a trade is going to work out probably increases when not only are you crossing through a zone of control, in this case downwards, but there's a lot of sellers. And not only are there sellers right there, there's also a zone of sellers above. So it's more bearish information in your favor. We can see a couple other trades like that as well.
Yeah, exactly. So talking about Discord, we got a lot of comments in the Q&A here. Hey, how can we join our Discord channel? And Omar, I cannot post to the entire audience. Perhaps you can post these two links, which I just sent you, a private chat on how to join our Discord channel, but also how to get our volume IQ indicator. All right.
No worries.
So,
We'll send that out now.
thank you. So I'm going to take the screen back again, Nicholas, real quick. And we get back to the live charting in just a bit, but I would like to point out that we have developed and optimized our volume IQ indicator for MotiveWave. It takes advantage of all the great features that MotiveWave has to offer. For example, the great and stunning visuals, one of the big strength of MotiveWave. We clearly implemented it with many different theme options, with ways to enable and disable features to keep your chart clean and so forth. You also can create alerts and watch lists. Imagine being alerted when a symbol crosses such an important zone, and you may see a follow through. You can create watch lists based on these criteria. You can even create your own strategies based on our volume IQ indicator. And perhaps most importantly, you can scan for setups. So with MotiveWave, it is possible to simply scan through multiple symbols and timeframes to find those who currently have a setup. For example, the shift and control setup that Nicholas just talked about, which is only one of many setups that we trade. It's one of our most popular ones and one of our favorites, but there are other setups as well. And if you just stay on for a little bit, we're going to explain to you how you can learn all about the different volume setups that you can trade. There are many different options as well. Talking about scanning, here is a scan from this morning. As you can see here, we run the scan through some popular futures contracts, but also some stocks on the 5, 15, and 30-minute time frame. And for example, we found that, hey, on the S&P E-mini futures, we did have a zone break or a break of this high volume node setup, the one that Nicholas talked about. And Nicholas, how did this one pan out? Did price go further up? I didn't follow.
Yeah,
what
we
the
can
market
also
did.
look at the live chart afterwards, because it's actually in an interesting setup even more right now. But yeah, it crossed above, and this scan triggered. You can see in that screenshot there, the center of that high volume node is around 57.55, 57.56 when the scan triggered. Hey, it's a shift in control setup, and price went up from 57.55 to a high of something like, let me check right now, 57. It went up to 57.70 before retracing, and now there's actually a new setup. So the setup played out, but there's actually a new setup right now that we can look at afterwards if we look at the live chart.
Yeah. We can go back to the live charting perhaps at the end, but for now, now, because also we have seen many questions about this. How can you get volume IQ? Well, I'm going to tell you. But first off, if you are wondering, hey, is this indicator something I might find useful? Well, let me tell you one thing. It doesn't matter whether you are a day trader, a scalper, a swing trader, or perhaps a longer term investor. You could use volume IQ, our indicator, because it will work on all time frames and all chart types. It also doesn't matter what you trade, whether you trade stocks or FX or futures or crypto, as long as volume data is available and only regular volume data is required. You don't need anything fancy like level 2 data. You could use volume IQ because it will work on all asset classes and all symbols. And of course, Volume IQ is built for MotiveWave. It works great on MotiveWave. It's an amazing platform. We love MotiveWave. As mentioned before, we have a very strong relationship with MotiveWave, and it's been fantastic. But in case you are on other platforms as well, you can also use them on NinjaTrader and TradingView. And most importantly, if you are an engineer like me, I'm a software engineer, and if you believe that tools can make your life easier, good tools can make your life easier, and good trading tools can make your trading life easier, then Volume IQ is definitely for you because it will do all the heavy lifting for you. It will show you where are these key zones that we talked about. Yeah, where are these accelerators and deaccelerators, where there's an imbalance in the market, just at a glance. So it made our trading life much easier. And most importantly, it helped us to take more insightful trading decisions. Now, how can you get access to this indicator? Well, as a big thank you for being here today with our friends from MotiveWave, we have put together a special offer, which allows you to get this indicator for life at a 50% discount. That's the biggest discount we've ever offered. Normally, the indicator retails at $1,997, but today, for the first 10 users, we're going to give away the indicator for half that price for only $997. And this is for life. So you don't have to pay a single dime again. And if you want to be one of these first 10 users, all you need to do is to first off, go to this link here. And Omar, please put this link also into the chat. It's tradingindicators.com, which is our homepage, /volume. This will redirect you to a page. You follow this page and then enter discount code profile. It's also mentioned on the page again at checkout. This will reduce the price from $1,997 to $997 for the first 10 users. And what's also important is really close to our heart and our intentions is that you will not be left alone with this indicator. It's a complex indicator, it's a sophisticated indicator, and it requires a bit of training to get started. But we will not let you alone with this because we're going to include a whole host of training material with this indicator as well. So let me quickly walk you through it. First off, on April 10th at 9:30 a.m. in about 2 weeks from now, our next live trading workshop will take place where we'll use our live money to live trade the market open using Volume IQ. So you can follow along, you can see how we set up our charts, how we position ourselves, how we enter into trades, how we exit trades with our live money account using this indicator. Secondly, you will also receive our pre-recorded masterclass and boot camps on the Volume IQ indicator. It's hours of education showing you every single feature of the indicator and how you can use that feature to your advantage. So you get the masterclass and the bootcamp. We have bootcamps for MotiveWave, of course, but also for other platforms. And you will be invited to our Discord channel. The link is already in the chat, and to our live member sessions, which will take place every single Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. It's been, I think we've been offering these live sessions for maybe 3 years now. They're all recorded. We have a whole library of pre-recorded sessions, and every Tuesday you can join us live. You can ask questions, you can learn tips and tricks, and you can see our outlook on the market using Volume IQ and other indicators. So I think it's a great offer. And of course, you join our community as well, where we can be part of a trading team. So tradingindicators.com/volume. And here is the offer once again. For the first 10 users, you will get this indicator for half the price at a 50% discount for only $997. And this is for life. All right, with this, we're at the 45-minute mark. Omar, are you impressed with our timing?
Yeah,
Um,
you got it down packed to the minute.
yeah, but I would still like to open the room to see if there are any questions, to maybe perhaps answer some questions if that is possible, Omar. Do we have a few more minutes for those?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I can start off with one, and then
Yeah,
if you guys would like to take a look at the Q&A section and go ahead and answer whichever ones you guys would like.
perfect.
So yeah, let's get started. Is this indicator available to Ultimate Edition subscriptions? So this indicator is available to download after purchase with trading indicators for any leases. Well, for leases from Pro Edition and Ultimate Edition. They're also available for lifetime license as well. It doesn't matter if you have a lease or a lifetime license, as long as you have a Pro or Ultimate Edition, you'll be able to use this indicator.
Perfect. Yeah. And are there any other versions of MotiveWave below this? I
We
think, yeah.
It requires indicator on indicator.
Oh, actually, it
Um,
does not actually. Actually, this particular one does not require this feature.
okay.
But if you want to scan for setups, for the scanning
Mhm.
part, I think you need the Pro version, which includes indicator-based scanning. But
Mhm.
I think you're confusing this one with our strategy builder, which requires the indicator on indicator feature. This one here,
Gotcha.
the volume IQ, works actually with every MotiveWave version that's out there. That's no
Okay.
problem. Yep,
So, yeah, sounds good.
perfect. All right. So that was that. So let me see. Nicholas, can you point
Yeah,
out some question or call out some questions from the Q&A, please?
of course. So from Matthew, is it one platform for purchase? Yes, Matthew, it is, but you can change your platform after purchase. One other question, any plans to make this available for TradeStation? I don't think so for the anonymous asker of that question. Another one here, can it be installed? Okay, a lot of platform questions. Yes, it can be on TradingView as well and NinjaTrader. If you would like it there, it's totally functional. And it's the same features. One question here from Laura is, why did you choose a look back of 1,000 bars as opposed to a weekly volume profile? And well, the nice thing about this indicator, and I personally, the straight up answer is that I think because I think a volume profile, we found that volume profiles that look back a number of bars instead of a specific period, like a week, are much more useful because, as I'll show in a second, when you swap timeframes on your chart, it's going to adapt. And on MotiveWave, you can even set it to look at a higher time frame. Even though you're on a 15-minute chart, you can get the volume IQ levels and information from a 4-hour chart if you wanted. But I think it's a lot better to use a bar look back for volume profiles than a set period, because if you're using a set period, it's kind of arbitrary, right? Unless you're kind of trading off of the initial balance of a period. The volume from last week and 2 weeks ago is still relevant this week. That's why I think we use that approach is the best answer. It's, old volume is still relevant. Just because a new week started doesn't mean last week's levels and information don't matter. And one question here, Daniel. I've MotiveWave Ultimate. Not sure if I need the most recent update. So as Omar answered before, you need the appropriate version of MotiveWave if you want these scanning features and so on. But I don't believe you will need the most recent update of MotiveWave. Maybe if you're a year up to date, the indicator should work. We have many users who use older versions and the indicator works fine. Daniel, there's one question here from Mattis. What about volume pockets? So I think volume pockets for us are really the low volume nodes for reversals. So we do have a lot of trade setups, and you'll see when we go, if you view our masterclass video, and also when we do our live trading session, how we interpret things like low volume pockets for reversals. There's a lot of information in this indicator, right? There's the bias blocks,
Yeah.
individual level balances, so many features we didn't even cover that really I think will make the understanding better. And
Yeah,
we have,
and
yeah.
Nicholas, just real quick, this is all covered in our master's class. This is 2 sessions. I think each is 90 or maybe a bit longer minutes. It's very detailed, showing you every single feature. And most importantly, it will go through a lot of different trade setups that you can use with this indicator. So it's very detailed. Of course, in this webinar, we could only touch the surface, but you will get all these educational resources. And perhaps the most important one is this one on the left here, our live trading workshop. It's a 90-minute to 2-hour workshop where we live trade our own money, future contracts, and from a day trading point of view. So follow us
And
along here, and you'll see how we do it.
Daniel, do you mind if I share my screen for a second to answer a question? I think you're muted. Is it okay if I share my screen
sorry,
now?
go for it. Yeah, please.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to share my MotiveWave here just to show what we're talking about. So actually, about 5 minutes ago, I just pointed out in our Discord, let me get this open here. I pointed out here that M2K, so Russell futures on the 30-minute chart are having one of those big shift in control tests we spoke about. There's nice reward to risk for a short trade with a 2090 as a pivot. So we saw here, hey, there's a tier 2 test. This is a tier 2 zone, a big high volume node. I was saying, hey, it might be a good short trade right now because that's acting as resistance and we've got reason to believe we'll accelerate downwards. So this is on a 30-minute chart. So to answer those questions about look back, well, first of all, that was at 1244 that I pointed that out. Now it's 1251. I pointed that out at around here when we were testing the zone. Look where we are now. We actually dropped exactly as the indicator kind of predicted. But that was on a 30-minute chart. I'm on the 5-minute on M2K futures here. What we could do on MotiveWave that you actually can't do on TradingView, this is why MotiveWave is so beautiful, is you can come into the settings here, go to options, and say bar size, 30 minutes. Even though I'm on the 5-minute chart, I want to see what's happening on the 30-minute chart from Volume IQ's perspective. And once I do that, whoa, now let me just change one setting here. Rectangles. Now we can see there's that tier 2 zone, that big, we call it a tier 2. You'll learn that in the masterclass. But there's that big zone that 5 minutes ago, right around here, we were testing. And I was saying, hey, it might act like resistance. And we've got reason to believe on the 30-minute that there's low volume below these low volume nodes. We might accelerate downwards until we get to this next zone of control, especially if this ledge right here, as a questioner pointed out, this is it could be viewed as a ledge and this could be viewed as a shelf. If this shelf holds up as resistance and we break this, we're probably going to accelerate down to here. So that's a really nice feature. It also ties into the question about why we use a certain bar look back instead of a weekly. You can actually change that. It's customizable. So not only can you change the number of levels, you can select different themes we have, but you can also say, hey, I don't want to look back 500 bars. I want to look back 1,500 bars. And then you're going to get a longer term view, more information. And here on this view, actually, we can see that we're coming down to test an even more long-term important zone. And if this breaks, yeah, it reinforces our theory. We might drop lower. It's that shift in control setup that is actually very common, especially if you're day trading. But if you're not day trading on Tesla, we pointed this out in our Discord. That price dropped down on the daily chart for long-term investors. And we've actually done back tests. If you're able to look at one of our recordings, I think from last week, this a long-term strategy on stocks with volume IQ is once you get that shift in control, it's a really nice probability trade. Look what happened here on Monday. On Monday morning, when we opened up, right at the open, price had a shift in control setup. This is you see a little 2 right here. That's a tier 2 zone. I'm going to turn it into rectangles. So that's a zone of control. Once we cross that level from beneath, that's a long entry signal. And what happened on Monday morning? Right at the bell, 256 was the open. The zone of control center was 256. Go long here. Well, if you had just in a couple days, that was a upside of, I think, about 12% in total in just a couple days. But another example of kind of this shift in control setup, it works on all time frames.
Yeah, exactly. And this also exemplifies that this indicator not only works for day trading, but also for longer term investing. Perfect. I'm going to grab this slides back, Nicholas. And all these educational resources are included. And as mentioned, for the first 10 users, you can get this indicator at a great discount at half price, so to say. All right, so are there any other questions? Let me see. I don't see any. There's a question on whether to use extended hours or regular hours. Typically depends on the asset class you're trading. So for futures, our default setting is extended hours. Of course, it makes sense that these futures trade the entire day, more or less. For stocks, typically we use just regular hours just to get a cleaner look and avoid the after-hour markets. But that's a question of preference, and it doesn't, the indicator can work with both settings. All right, perfect. So one last thing to point out, if we missed a question, there were lots of questions coming in, you can always reach out to us via our homepage, tradingindicators.com. Go there. In the main menu, click on the contact item. enter your question into the contact form, submit it, and it will go straight to my inbox or Niklas' inbox, and we're going to make sure to get back to all your questions as soon as possible. All right, with this, can it be used for scalping? Yes, absolutely. That's what we do all the time. In fact, if you go to our Discord, our community, to some degree, is all day traders, and all we do there is talk day trading on one of our channels, pointing out interesting setups on the various futures contracts, but also some stock contracts. Absolutely. All right. With
Daniel,
this,
maybe I mention on that point to the Discord, the alerts.
oh, yeah, and also in our Discord channel, if you join or if you come on board, you will also get trade alerts. These are automatically populated in our channel for various time frames, for the 5-minute time frame, the 15-minute time frame, the hourly, and also the daily time frame. So depending on your trading style, you can get some interesting trade alerts in Discord as well. Great. So with this, Omar, I think we are our volume profiles and volume IQ the same. Well, volume IQ is our interpretation of a volume profile indicator. So it has all the built-in features that a regular volume profile indicator has, but much more on top of this, which simplifies our trading and helps us make better trading decisions. And I think with the proper education and training, and by following us along in our live trading, you can also find the things that we are looking for on the chart, which has helped us become better traders.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always important to remember that trading is an iterative process. You're going to have to build your trading playbook. You're going to have to do your own metrics and figure out what's best for you as well.
Yeah, trading is personal. Absolutely. Yeah.
And with that said, I can also confirm when it comes to the editions that Volume IQ's compatible with, it'll be all of our paid editions, any edition aside from Community Edition. Um, and yeah, I guess would this mark the end of the webinar, Daniel? Or is there
Yes,
anything else you wanted to
that's
cover?
that's all from our side, and it's been fun as always. So thanks, Omar, so much for hosting us once again. Always great to be here, and I hope you guys found this webinar useful. You perhaps got some takeaways on how to use volume profiles, and if you're interested in getting on board with Volume IQ, our indicator, well, now is the time for the first 10 users one last time at tradingindicators.com/volume.
All right, with that said, I appreciate everyone here for taking their time out of their day to join our webinar. If you guys do have more suggestions for webinars, we take all of those suggestions very seriously. Just email sales@motivewave.com and we'll start compiling some webinar topics and see if we can provide some more value to you guys. With that said, take care, everyone.
Bye bye.